Hi, everyone. Welcome to Being Patient Perspectives. I'm Deborah Kahn, founder of Being Patient. Tonight, we're going to talk about a dementia known as posterior cortical atrophy. Now, admittedly, I hadn't heard of it, nor do I know a lot about it. It's still a dementia that they don't really understand if it's a variant of Alzheimer's or a whole separate dementia itself. So today we have Deb Jobe. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, truly.
So, Deb, tell us a little bit about, you're young, you're in your 50s, you had your first diagnosis in early 50s. I think you were 51, 52 years old. Tell us how symptoms started to present themselves.
Sure. I was 53 when officially diagnosed. I think really how it started, my husband said it probably started about a year and a half before that. I worked in I worked in the human capital management industry and worked with in the global managed care space, which is very large, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 organizations, as their customer success manager, responsible for the overall success of the onboarding and the implementation of the products, and they were your payroll. You know, when you get a payroll, whether it's electronic, it was benefits, enrolling. We actually built the system behind that, the back end. So when you all enroll, that's it. Among other human capital management features like that, and I found myself struggling to learn new things. And I was one that was always strive to excel, really excel and be at the top of my game and really do all those things. And I was just struggling. I would ask questions, the same questions over and over. I would be in the middle of whether it's a meeting, a governance presentation, and these people could be anywhere from like the CFOs, CEOs, the senior management, exec VPs, managers, benefit specialists. It doesn't matter. All across the board. They're leaving now.
It's okay. We always have guest appearances by dogs, so that's okay.
But so I would lose my train of thought. I couldn't answer a question. Or the words would come out wrong, or what I was seeing on the screen, my eyes and my brain were interpreting. It was like completely different, way off of what it should have been.
Is it like when you're, I'm thinking as you're describing this, it's like when you're following a math equation on a whiteboard or a blackboard, and the teacher's writing, and you get stuck at this one point and you actually lose your train of thought. Is it a loss of train of thought, or is it more like you just couldn't comprehend? You were looking at things and nothing was registering.
It was a little bit of both, and more so I'd look at it and it would just look foreign. It just wouldn't register. I remember my boss one time, and I worked for a wonderful organization. They were very compassionate and very graceful. And my boss and the team we're just, I couldn't have asked for a better, more graceful exit. But he would say, Deb, this should only take you like 20 minutes. And I would be there for 3 hours. I would be up hours and hours doing things that used to take me like that. I've been in this industry for 30 years. I'm like, what? And then I was constantly forgetting things, or my husband would ask me to do something, and I'm like, oh my God, how do I do this? And things.
So wait, can you give us an example of that? Was it something as basic as, turn on the oven, or I don't know, like what is your first recollection of, I don't know how to do it, even though it's something I should know how to do?
A measuring tape. He just wanted me to pull it down. And I'm like, I didn't understand. I was like, and I've had times like with the oven too, it's like turn the oven. I'm like, oh my God, how do I do this guy? I don't, oh my God, I don't remember. How do I tell him I don't remember? And things with my eyes gets weird. I've seen red before, like words turn red on a page. I don't read books anymore. I do audiobooks. Now I will get the Ring Companion and follow along because it'll highlight. I do a lot of text to word now. One time, the other instant, my husband's like, okay, there's something wrong with you. I was like, John, there's a hole in our closet, our master closet. I looked, and what my brain told me is there was a tunnel. It was one of those kind of black iridescent weight scales.
So is that a hallucination then? Are you experiencing hallucinations?
No, it's because the PCA affects the back of your, and there's back there in the back of your brain, and it impacts when you take in sight. My eyes are perfectly fine, but it has to go through the brain and process out what you see, and mine is broken. Sometimes it just doesn't process things right.
So posterior cortical atrophy, they call it PCA, is the degeneration of the outer layer of the brain, the cortex of the brain, right?
Starts in the back.
Versus the hippocampus, where in Alzheimer's disease, it's the hippocampus, right? Is that the distinction here?
Yeah, you're pretty much spot on. And they thought it was younger, early onset Alzheimer's first. The PET scan, well, and my husband's like, there's something wrong with it. So he had me go to the primary, who didn't discount it for things like, I'm 56 now. Except when I was 52 or 53, menopause. Or I thought I was just super stressed at work because we were implementing a very large organization, which had the spotlight of the entire organization. So it was really tough. I just need some time off. It was a long implementation. They sent me to a local neurologist, Deborah, and the PET scan did not come back good. The neuropsych testing, which I thought I freaking aced, did not come back good. I still didn't believe it. I denied it completely.
What did the PET scan show? Did you see, is there plaque in your brain? What did it show?
It wasn't plaque, but it was significant hypo. There's a word for it. I don't remember it. That was greater on the left than the right side, and there were also areas in the pons and some other areas. I can't remember the word. In other words, my brain is not processing glucose like it should, which is indicative of a progressive brain disease, dementia.
So how did you get okay, so you obviously, and they always say, neurologists always say, if you were always bad at something like numbers or remembering people's names or faces, then that's not just when you experience a change, right? Which is what you're describing. It was like, all of a sudden at work, I wasn't comprehending things and it was taking me a lot longer. Those are classic signs that it may be something more, a type of dementia. So how easy or difficult was it to get this diagnosis? I mean, your husband was a good indicator to you that, okay, we've got to get this checked out, as you mentioned. So what was that like getting diagnosed?
I was very, very fortunate, and I wish everyone, which is why I'm so passionate about early intervention and about get to the doctor. It could be so many other things. Very, very rarely does it ever really end up with a progressive brain disease. I didn't think it would. It never even crossed my mind. The spinal tap had conflicting results, so there wasn't a definitive yes or no. So they referred me to Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, and Mayo then did additional testing. They are the ones that did the final diagnosis. I went the neural psych done in that May, and by that December, I had a complete diagnosis.
So when they diagnose you, was that based on the scans? Is that how? Because A lot of the symptoms that you're describing, it could be Alzheimer's in a way, right? I've heard other people who have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's say the same thing that what you are telling us. So what made this conclusive for this type of dementia, for posterior cortical atrophy?
Well, a couple things. I have no amyloid plaques. And that's usually the definitive for true Alzheimer's. And based on where the atrophy is in, what was positioned with the MRIs positioned where that was, they could see that along with the neuropsych testing would test a lot of different facets. And then really just what I was telling them, all three, it just covered, it just clicked off all those, whatever, to actually make that formal diagnosis.
Did the doctors explain to you why they would think that this might be a variant of Alzheimer's versus a whole different type of dementia?
That's a really good question. Typically, their PCA has to have some form of an associated neurological progressive disease, brain disease. Either it could be Lewy body, it could be Alzheimer's, it could be what mine is called cortical basal syndrome. And so that was diagnosed because I'm getting more weakness on the right side. I have a leg brace now. I can't walk because it's called, I guess, dystonia. I can't walk without it. I mean, I can with the cane, but it's basically turning in and doing things. I have no control, or my brain doesn't really control that part anymore.
Right.
My whole left side is or right side is a lot weaker than it was. So that is the underlying cause. There's debate on whether or not, a lot of times it's referred to as the visual variant of Alzheimer's. It's not a very common, I come to discover, and there's no familial connection. It's something that hits people between their 40s and 60s, and it just boom.
So it is an earlier type of onset. We actually, to that point, we have a viewer saying she was diagnosed with early onset dementia last year at the age of 45. How often should I be seen to check how fast I'm progressing? So what's that like for you? Do you go to the doctors every few months to understand the progression?
Right now, I have a couple different neurologists. Now, in the beginning, I did go every 3 months. There was a check-in because they wanted to see how fast it was progressing. And then it went 6 months with my brain neurologist. I see now it's once a year, unless my husband notices some significant changes or something, really it's like let's say hallucinations start. For that viewer, you're young. I don't know if you have engaged in any of the following, because I'm telling you, it is going to make a world of difference in your life. Number one, counseling. They put me in counseling right away to come to terms with what's happening. I went to cognitive therapy that helped me with like mind strategies, memory strategies. I'm starting occupational therapy because of what's happening there. Support group. Alzheimer's Association has some local support groups all over the place. An elder care attorney. Get your documents in order. This is all going to bring you peace, knowing that your wishes are documented, and also don't isolate yourself. Please don't, because it just brings you down that tunnel of depression. And I went through a very serious period of that. And sometimes people aren't going to believe it because you don't look like it, right? Or tell you, they're very meaningful, but telling you, well, you just need to change your diet, or you need to get more sleep, or this doctor says you can reverse it. if that was the case, we wouldn't be here today. I have hope, but take care of yourself, eat, get some exercise, be social.
And social is so key. I mean, even research is now backing the importance of social interaction for our brains, in terms of really slowing down progression, right? Or kicking the can down the road. I mean, we're social animals. We need, I interviewed a scientist who said, think about it, Deborah, when you talk to someone, you're using your brain, you're listening to what they said, you're formulating a response, you're comparing it to things that have happened in the past. So actually, social interaction is probably one of the ones we should put very high up there in terms of what we need to do to keep our brains healthy.
I agree 100%. And there are so many people, some of my just closest friends now are those that I've met in support group. And so you share, all three of us are in our 50s. We each have, different diagnoses, but it results in the same younger on stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. So tell me, let's talk a little bit about getting out of that depression, because I know that's a really hard, I mean, the stigma behind dementia is so life altering in itself, right? It's like, how do you deal with, like, suddenly you have this disease that you've been diagnosed for, and I think people worry that's going to become my identity, right? So talk us a little through how you dealt with that, how you got yourself out of that depression. And before we were speaking, before we did this interview, what's so wonderful is you have purpose in your life and you're living your life. You're not ill, you don't seem ill or dying. You have this, you seem to be really fully living your life. So talk us through that. How did you get to that point? Because I know it's probably pretty difficult for a lot of people receiving diagnosis today.
I will tell you, I was a mess for the first 6 months. I went through I only broke down twice in just gut wrenching tears. The first was the final diagnosis in the neurologist's office. The second was when I couldn't work any longer because work was a part of me. It defined, part of who I was, and I felt like I lost me. And what do I do now? What do I have to live for? But the counseling helped, absolutely. The support groups, knowing you're not alone. I got involved in the Alzheimer's Association from an advocate perspective, now that I can no longer work, to be able to share what's happening and really, really help people understand. I never thought this was a face of somebody who has a progressive disease in the brain. And I never, no one's, I never in our world, my husband and I think that this was ever going to happen and I'm going to end up being some early dementia. So the other really big key for me, and I hope viewers have a support system, family. I have a almost 2-year-old grandson, our first one. He melts my heart. That little man just, and now that we're back here with the family and my dad and my brother and my sister-in-law, my older daughter Ray, who's just freaking amazing. She's like a mama. She treats me like a mama, or she treats me like a child, like she's my mama. And my daughter Heather and Lucas and my grandson Dante. Oh, and my stepmom, everyone. I have nieces and nephews and family. I am so blessed to have an amazing family, because I really did at one point, I did not want to live because I see the stress this causes on my husband. And I see just the look of sorrow. I don't think he realizes, but that look of sorrow sometimes in his face. Like, where did my wife go? Yeah. Sometimes it's so hard. And I know it's so stressful on him. And I'm like, I don't want to put him through this anymore. So I really wanted to die. But then my husband and my daughters, and they were just like, you have no idea what you would do to us if you ever did something, if you ever took your life. You would destroy us. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't do that. I can't do that. So that was like a click in my brain going, you know what? I could get run over by a bus. I could have a heart attack. My life doesn't have to end. There's still things, I can't ride a bike, I can't drive anymore. But I can voice, I can talk, I can encourage people. If just one person takes my advice and gets, whether their loved one, their family member, a friend, any concern, get it checked out. There's so many myriad of other things it could be than that. But at least if it is, you can catch that, and there is so much that can be done. And there is so much from innovation now happening with therapies and drugs. Do I think one might have? I don't know. I don't have as long as a life that a lot of people will, but I will watch that little man grow up as long as I can. I will speak, I will live, I will laugh, and I will cry just like everyone else. And as it gets worse and I forget things more, I'm doing story work now to kind of, my stepmom had got up for Christmas, and she was telling me about it. I was like, oh my gosh, basically it's a way to document your life in stories. There's questions, and then you answer the question, and then at the end they put a book together of that. So my family has that down. So, but it was, and I don't be afraid to go to therapy. Yeah. Please don't, because it could be a lifesaver for you. There's nothing wrong with antidepressants. Yeah. Our brains are messed up. So we have to combat that some way. It's not to be ashamed of.
So Deb, talk to me a little bit about some of the strategies that you're working. You talked a little bit about you're doing, brain games, you have occupational therapy. Talk us a little bit through that. What does that look like in your daily life? Like, do you have a schedule? Like what do you feel is really helping? What's not? Take us through that.
Well, a couple of things, especially from the very beginning where we had to learn how to kind of adapt things. So the cognitive therapy was really good. The very first session I thought, okay, we're going to talk about cognitive speech, the words. No, she said, she put a piece of paper down with the pillars of health. Holistic, how you eat, sleep, exercise, brain games, socialization, hydration. I was like, I thought this was cognitive speech therapy, just because all of this affects that. It affects you and how you're going to progress. I was like, oh, okay. So that in the counseling, I'm because I'm a tech geek, I use a lot of the apps that we have, and like Alexa is my best friend. I love Alexa. I also use memo reminders. But even it doesn't even have to be. I use electronic pill organizer, so I don't forget to take my pills. It beeps and flashes for 30 freaking minutes until I turn it upside down, and it just opens that one slot, and it can be locked. So like if you're at whatever stage you're at, even simple things. I don't really cook anymore. I get the ingredients confused, and I burnt my husband and I burnt myself a couple times. But so he makes these signs, and then gets them laminated with a picture and with what it is, like dishes are clean, stove is hot, refill water, dogs need to eat, or whatever whatever situation comes up. And we're like, okay, we need to get a card for that. We need to create one for that, and then puts it in those places.
Can you still use your phone? Because smartphones can be tricky if you have a dementia, right? Because there's so many different layers in your phone, but you haven't had a problem with that.
I think it's more so like because it's in my long term, and it's really my short term that's so impacted, literally. I'll ask my husband something 3 times. He's like, we talked about this. We talked about this yesterday. I'm like, sure we did. And he's like, do you want me to tell you this? I'm like, right now, yes, but there's gonna become a point. No, just humor me.
Yeah.
But because I think it's so ingrained, and I've used technology so much over the last, umpteen years, that it's still familiar to me. It's like, I could probably still put a PowerPoint together, or put a slide deck, or do a spreadsheets and that kind of stuff that I used to work with a lot. It's not short-term related. It takes a long time for me to learn something new. Yeah, but I try to write things down, and brain games, even a regular game, even because you still have to think, right? You still have to think.
So, Deb, on this journey, what would you say for people who, I mean, you obviously went through a hard time after diagnosis, but you're a positive person, and you sounds like you're making the most out of things. So what would you tell people to do after diagnosis? What's the best thing? Like, what is your philosophy with living with this diagnosis?
Well, I think that when you're newly diagnosed, you are so, my husband's and I world just went up, we just turned upside down. We just were lost. The neurologist said to contact the Alzheimer's Association, and we did. And they connected us with local resources and support groups. I advocate, or whoever's with you, that your physician, who's ever diagnosed you, to do referrals for the cognitive speech therapy, for counseling. Counseling will make a difference. And also, what else was it? Well, so obviously that, and then also, again, your financial situation. Ours had to change completely. So you may not want to deal with, you'll know what you're ready to deal with at what point, but the counseling and the referral to the cognitive therapy and getting local support is the the top things that you absolutely should do. And then as it kind of helps you kind of come to terms with things, then you start thinking about other that's when you probably go more into long-term care planning and things. That once you kind of get those things out of the way, we didn't have a will. Stupid, I know, at our ages. We didn't have a will, advance medical directive, anything. Now at least we have peace of mind that we do. But then don't isolate yourself. It's hard to tell friends. Some friends may gradually just fade away, but that's okay. You're going to make new ones through support groups and those things, activities you'd love to do. Don't stop doing them. Please don't stop doing them, because that's what brings you joy. I realized throughout this last couple of years, I've also been, again, I said I was very involved, and I am very involved in the Alzheimer's Association. I'm just finishing my term as one of the advisors for the National Early Stage Advisory Group for this past year. So for me, what makes me feel like a whole person, not just my family, obviously, but is that kind of work I do. So whatever your passion is, do it. Don't waste time. And something could happen to any one of us, God forbid, at any point in time in our life. In the early stages, you have this time to plan. You have this time to put these strategies in place. I believe truly, Deborah, that this is what is not stabilizing, but helping me continue to live. Now, guys, I have bad days. My husband calls it my crazy eyes. And there's times when I won't see anybody. John will say she's having a bad day. I can't think well at all. I don't remember, like how to make a cup of coffee in a cave thing or a pot thing. He's just lost look, and I sleep a lot. It's like the neurologist says, your brain just needs to shut down and recharge. So literally I'll sleep. I sleep a lot more than I've ever slept. But faith, faith, whatever your faith is, I believe in the Lord, I believe in God, but whatever your faith is, He's there. Don't lose your faith.
Well, thank you so much, Deb, for sharing your story. It's so important to hear people like you, how you're living with dementia, and it's really inspiring. So thank you. And part of what we want to do at Being Patient by sharing stories like yours is really take away the stigma from diagnosis and show that people like you are actually doing okay. You found purpose, you're social, you're living life. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. We wish you all the best. We've learned a lot from you to stay social, engaged, don't give up, get help when you need it, and don't be ashamed, and make new friends if you need to. So thank you so much, Deb, for sharing your story.
It was truly an honor and my pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. So hopefully, who's ever out there, please, you are a person. You can still live. We still live. We are human. We are still us.
And amen to that. So if you've missed any of this interview or you want to know more, please go to beingpatient.com. Also, don't forget to sign up to our newsletter. We give you the latest news on Alzheimer's and dementia research, and feature interviews such as this one, so you know what's coming ahead of time. So thanks very much for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye now.